Hello, everybody. It's the Historical Gamer once again, and first off, I want to wish everybody in the United States a happy Veterans Day. It's November 11th, which is Veterans Day, and to everybody outside the United States, I hope you're having a happy Armistice Day, the day that World War I effectively ended. In today's episode or video, we're going to be returning to Strategic Command, World War II, World at War. It's been a while since our last episode, but I did want to keep this thing going, and we will be continuing to revisit this periodically. As you may recall, if you've been following this series, this has been a very long-running series on the channel, and we're in a bit of a pickle. It is August of 1945. The Russians have seen Moscow fall. They've seen the secondary capital of Kuybyshev fall. And the third and final Soviet capital of Perm will not be long for this world. The Germans are driving and destroying the Soviet army with very copious amounts of firepower, both from the air and on the ground. They're cutting through us like a hot knife through butter. We're losing unit after unit. We're barely holding onto the city right now, but it could fall this turn. It might fall next turn. It might be 2 or 3 turns. We don't know. The one thing we've had a little bit of success of is in the southern portion of the map, just south of Chelyabinsk. We have surrounded 2 German armies. We've already destroyed 1 army, but we have a special forces unit and the 8th German army, both cut off and surrounded. But the problem is our Soviet units are so ineffective at this point due to low morale and low readiness and better German technology that we're having a tough time closing this out. And our opportunity to successfully knock these 2 units out will largely depend on if the weather cooperates and prevents us from getting bombed from the air. It's mainly a diversion, though. Hopefully it draws some German troops south from Perm. You can see here we do have a line of troops in front of Perm, but we also have an army in Perm. The Germans have been attacking sort of on a northern front and have worn down a 2-layer defense down to a single layer. Meanwhile, further north and west, they're driving on Kirov with armored units. They've already taken Leningrad, Volkov, Archangel. They haven't yet gotten as far north as Murmansk, which has allowed us to continue to pour resources into Russia to build more and more units, which basically are cannon fodder, but that's the situation right now. Meanwhile, the only area that the war is moderately encouraging is in the Pacific, where we've taken back most of the Japanese conquests in the Pacific, with the exception of Truk and Guadalcanal and Rabaul and sort of Japanese positions in New Guinea. But we have liberated the Philippines, we have liberated Singapore, we've liberated most of the Dutch East Indies, although not all of it. Brunei is still Japanese held. We have also landed a British expeditionary force in southern China. China has largely been overrun. Chongqing has fallen, and so has the alternate capital, was it Langkao? The Japanese are advancing on Umrichi, which is the last Chinese capital city in China, and they've also invaded Burma from China, as well as threatening India on that front. We're holding the line in the mountains here along the Burma Road, but it's not a good setup. It's not a good situation. But at least so far, the Japanese logistical challenge has been pretty big. That's prevented them from driving too successfully into Burma and India so far, but our troops are really getting attrited there very quickly. The one thing that may save them is, again, this sort of Commonwealth invasion. We've liberated Hong Kong, we've liberated Hakoi, Pakoi, and Nanning, and so we're pushing into kind of the soft underbelly of the Japanese conquest of China, perhaps with an opportunity to drive on Guilin or Hainan, or we've already also taken Amoy as well. But the Japanese air power is so overwhelming in this theater that this may be a short-lived success. Additionally, we've invaded Japan. We invaded and took Nagasaki, we nuked and took Hiroshima, and so we have gained a bit of a foothold here. These 2 units are probably going to die, the 3rd Marine Tanks and the 2nd Marine Special Forces, but it's unlikely, in my opinion, that the Japanese will be able to push us off the home islands because it's such a narrow front. So if we hold the line at Hiroshima, we can probably continue holding the line against the Japanese in southern Japan. The problem is it's very unlikely we'll be able to break through all this massive hordes of Japanese units to Tokyo. Our best chance of stopping the German juggernaut is knocking Japan out of the war at this point, because as soon as Russia falls, Germany is going to be in a completely dominant position and ready to begin the invasion of England and knock England out of the war, which will give them an overall victory in the game. We could potentially knock Japan out of the war and free up resources to swing against Germany, but that is dubious at best. I mean, all of these naval assets would be much better served in the Atlantic against the huge German fleet that they're building up with their massive economic resources, but at the moment they're needed to support the forces in Japan, so we'll see how things play out. That's the situation right now in August of 1945. We've already conducted this turn of ours, so we're going to go ahead and end the turn and see what the AI has in store for us as we move into late August, and then also our next turn, which will be in September of 1945. My understanding is the game goes until the spring of 1947, so there's still a ways left in this game in theory before any kind of stalemate would trigger. You can see there we did land in northern Japan as well. Hokkaido has sort of raised their militia forces. We're gaining some progress in advanced fighters for the British, which would be great because the Japanese already have level 5, the Germans already have level 5 fighters. So we're at a massive disadvantage if the Germans try and use their air power in France to overwhelm us as they move to invade England. As well as their naval forces. Although I don't think Germany has much in the way of carriers. They might have one, but their primary asset is their land-based air. Meanwhile, you can see here some shifting of troops. The Amori base in northern Japan has seen an army transit to it, so they're countering our marine landing at Hakodate, an industrial center on the northern island in the home islands. It looks like they're also reinforcing their ground units near Hiroshima, so they're not going to be able to make a push south of Hiroshima because they're using this turn to reinforce those units. You can't reinforce and move in the same turn, so that unit is frozen in place. But I expect our one armored and infantry unit north of Hiroshima that we kind of landed on the flank of the Japanese possessions there to take some damage. Meanwhile, Japanese land-based air in China is hitting some Allied warships off the coast of China. Japan has a very strong air base or air force in China. And you can see they're doing some damage to a light British cruiser, although they didn't sink it or anything there. Meanwhile, the weather looks good over the Soviet Union, so German tactical air is pounding our anti-aircraft position here, presumably to make their eventual assault on the Perm line more successful. Their air power is reducing that particular anti-aircraft unit, but they haven't destroyed it thus far. They're focusing their artillery there as well. I would imagine a ground assault will destroy that anti-aircraft gun, but if they're going to focus their efforts on an anti-aircraft gun, by all means, I'm very happy to let them do that. Meanwhile, our invasion in Italy is getting attacked on the spearhead there against our armor by German units there. I expect they will be successful in destroying that lead German unit. The Armored Division and Marine Division north of Hiroshima getting attacked by the Japanese, as we expected. German forces are advancing on Murmansk. German forces are advancing on Kirov, where we put sort of a blocking force there to try and distract German forces. An attack in Amoy fails. The Japanese lose casualties, and we lose nothing. Germans in the pocket near Orsk are attempting to break out to the south, or at least drive our forces to the south back, not with any success. Our armored division there north of Taranto was destroyed, so the spearhead of our invasion in Italy has fallen. Russian infantry south of Sverdlovsk are destroyed. Our headquarters to the northwest of Perm is destroyed, and as a result, that northern flank to Perm is now completely exposed, and the Germans could move around to the rear to attack Perm directly rather than through that one defensive position between us and them. Sverdlovsk is now exposed to German armor, which is advanced against it, and we have some artillery there, but we don't have any infantry. We would probably want to pull that artillery back, as it won't do really anything against German attacks. It's better in the supporting position, certainly not on the front line. It'll just die real fast on the front line. And so it seems to me like the situation in Russia is rapidly coming to a head. I thought maybe the Germans would break through at Perm and they might be able to start directly attacking this turn. Doesn't seem like that is the case, but I would expect by the end of September, by the turn after this one that we're playing here today, that the attack on the final Soviet capital at Perm may begin. We will find out, however, in the coming episodes. Doesn't look to be happening this turn, though. Meanwhile, some German units are cut off from supply and suffering some attrition damage, so that's good for us. We need to weaken the Germans as much as we can. Same for the Japanese and China. You can see there's some partisan activity. British commandos are raiding the Spanish coast, which is under German control, and so there's some economic disruption there, although very marginal. Germany's generating over 1,200 income per turn right now with all the territory they own. You can see that the Soviet 1st Anti-Aircraft was destroyed, the 4th Soviet Shock Army, the 7th Soviet Infantry Corps, and Zhukov's HQ was destroyed. Cambridge was damaged by bombing, Southampton Port was damaged by enemy V2s, and the 1st U.S. Marine Tank Division was destroyed. Was that the one in Japan? I didn't see that actually end up dying. You can see some intelligence reports coming in. Most of this intelligence isn't terribly useful. We do have a new Soviet shock army, which is being raised this turn. We probably want to put it north of Perm. I'm kind of tempted to move the 2nd shock army forward because its readiness and morale is going to be better than any new unit. So I think I will do that. I don't like the idea of moving them because they lose their entrenchments, but I need to put a blocking force in place, and you can see this new unit's readiness and morale is 50 and 50, whereas the 2nd shock is 63 and 76, so they've got a better chance, I think, of holding out if the enemy advances down this rail line. We'll also swap this, move this artillery back, swap this infantry into Sverdlovsk. They probably will get overrun by that armor this turn as they won't be entrenched at all, but maybe we'll have a chance there. Meanwhile, we can see the Brandenburg Special Forces and the 8th German Army are surrounded. The 1st Mechanized has a 0-3 ability to attack against them, so we'll do that. We'll lose a little bit in the way of casualties. Move these guys back. 0-0, really? Oh, shit. Alright, we'll move this armor up here. It's going to die, but maybe they'll attack the armor instead of the infantry. Alright, so these guys have 0 supply now, so hopefully these guys will be finished off in the next turn with a little bit more attrition. Destroying 2 German units at this point feels like it would be a huge success. I'll also attack out of Kirov against this German armor. Do a little bit of damage there. And that's pretty much it for the Soviets at this point. So we do have a fair bit of income that we can spend for the Soviets. So we can buy new units. I just wonder how much of it is ever going to come to the front. Like how much of it we'll ever end up seeing. We'll replace the core we lost this last turn at a discount. Doesn't look like we have any other discounted units we can recruit, though. Maybe the 4th Shock Army. So we get them discounted. And by the way that works, in case you haven't been around lately, is if a unit had been destroyed previously, you can reconstitute that unit at a slightly cheaper cost. Okay. We'll buy another core there. And why not a garrison? So you can see here the Soviets have a bunch of troops coming in our next turn. So it's September 21st, which is the next turn. We will be getting a Special Forces unit, an infantry corps, 2 shock armies, a garrison. So we'll be getting 4 new units. Hopefully the Germans don't take Perm. If they don't take Perm, and maybe if they don't even advance south on Perm, or if they do destroy some of these units but don't advance in on Perm, we might be able to flood a few more units in here and buy us another 2 weeks or so. The goal is obviously always to get to winter, because the German offensive becomes a lot less effective in winter in this game, although at this point we might be weak enough for them to still beat us there. Oh, the U.S. armor was in Italy, that's right. All right, let's pull our headquarters unit back. We'll pull our reinforcer infantry there. We'll bring some new infantry units into Catanzaro, the 1st U.S. Army. The 11th Army is going to go into Syracuse, so we are bringing in reinforcements into Italy to try and hold on there for a little bit longer. We're going to load these guys back up on transports and try and take the rest of Corsica, or the rest of sort of, not the rest of, but take Corsica. We've already liberated Sardinia. Our battleships here are bombarding Cadiz in an effort to try and maintain our hold. I'm going to drop some garrison troops into North Africa. In the event that Germany drives us out of Gibraltar, they may try and invade North Africa, so we'll put some garrison troops there. In England, I'm not sure there's a lot else I can do at the moment. I need to reinforce some of these naval assets, which have taken heavy casualties, either the air groups or the or the actual naval elements. Reinforce these American battleships, these British cruisers. Question is, do we want to try and attack anything German? God damn it. All right, we'll get a 2 to 4 there. The weather here is clear, though, so why don't we do this? Let's move our carrier south and go after them with our airbase, our naval air power. Now, our air power is apparently only piston-based. We did get some land-based escorts to help us out there, but we still suffered from the hands of the German sort of cap that's flying out over France with their jet fighters. Nonetheless, we still did a fair bit of damage. We'll pull our carrier back, send our battleship down to finish it off, and we got it. All right, so our carrier did lose a lot of its striking power. Apparently, our heavy cruiser can't move, which is great. We're probably going to get hit by enemy air, but I'm going to use my other carrier here against German destroyers here in the open. Looks like they exhausted their land-based air support, and in 2 airstrikes, without loss, my carrier destroyed a German destroyer there. So we just destroyed 2 German naval units. They had 24. They're down to 22 naval units. And this is sort of an attrition campaign that I have to wage in an effort to try and keep the German Navy weak enough that they won't try an invasion of England, or that we can contest an invasion of England successfully. Now, you know, I don't think we have anywhere near 20 naval units there, but destroying 2 German naval units, a destroyer and a battleship, you know, it counts for something. I just hope we don't lose this heavy cruiser, the Astoria, because it's kind of out there and exposed. Also, a large number of German naval assets are submarines, which, while useful, are not quite as concerning, if you will, to me. I'll move this battleship into London's harbor so we can replace its losses tomorrow. We'll finish repairing the Texas battleship. We'll also finish repairing the Norfolk heavy cruiser. I just really hope this heavy cruiser I moved down here, the Astoria, doesn't get destroyed by German subs or naval assets or land-based air off of France. What I really probably should have done was just moved my carrier down here and run some recon over there. Would have used up an airstrike, but it would have also probably saved us from some headaches. I'm going to move my destroyer adjacent to my heavy cruiser in the hope that it will either interdict German subs that may move out against the Astoria, or at least divert some of their air power. Losing a destroyer wouldn't be too detrimental to the cause. Do you have any shipping down here? Let's also operate this American fighter into England so that maybe it can provide some cover for these guys. So a fighter escort over that way. Okay, so we've done Russia, we've done England and the UK mostly. We can't reinforce that fighter. Can we upgrade anything here? The American fighters, by the way, can upgrade to long-range level 2. We haven't researched jets yet for the Americans, so that'll be the next upgrade. I'm not going to spend money on mobility for those American troops. It's not really worth it. You can see the Spitfire got very badly beat up. I hope it does not intercept. Actually, can we move it further north? I'd like to fly it further away. Or to, you know, not intercept. Maybe if I set it to ground, it won't intercept. Not sure. New units. The U.S. got a new tactical bomber unit. I'm going to deploy those on the west coast. Well, actually, can we deploy them to Midway? Can we deploy them further forward? No. I'm going to deploy them to Midway. I'd like to use them eventually against the Japanese. Also, let's go ahead and use long-range amphibious transport for these troops that are in Los Angeles. So we'll have an armored unit that'll be moving to the western, not western front, but into Japan before too long. I think we've already done everything we can do here. German armor is continuing to chase us in the desert. But they have no supply, which is interesting. So they may not be able to effectively drive into India or into even Bashir at this point with no supply. Okay. So I think that does it for this front. Let's zoom out real quick, make sure we're not missing any units. Doesn't look like we are. What are these guys doing here? British subs? We should move those back to the Atlantic. Troops in India, just sort of garrisoning against the Quiet India movement. What's the supply situation look like? Alright, we'll move these guys here. Can we shift and swap? Yes, we can. Nice. Alright, so we'll shift these special forces units. We'll reinforce these paratroopers. We'll attack this Japanese unit here that... Aww. Fucking A. I wish my troops were actually able to do something against those Japanese troops. Kind of sucks that it doesn't seem like they can. Just lose casualties. At least the rain is protecting them for the moment. Alright, so this light cruiser is going to pull back from Japan. It's already lost heavy casualties, so we'll pull it back to the Mariana Islands. We've got a new British headquarters unit that's coming ashore. We're going to reinforce these troops already in China. Attack these Japanese tactical bombers there with our ground forces. Send the British Expeditionary Army into China as well. Hopefully with this headquarters unit now, they'll be better prepared to strengthen our position here near Hong Kong. Move these guys into Pakawai. I think they'll draw more supply in the city. Maybe not. Okay, so that's that. Meanwhile, we'll go ahead and reinforce our fighters on Okinawa. We've got the 2nd Marine Division with 1 strike, and we've got the 1st Mechanized. Can we load these guys back up on transports? No. Alright. Let's try and hit the 16th Japanese Army in an effort to get these armored units of mine that are just north of Hiroshima out of hawk here. See if we can't use our naval bombardment to lower the Japanese morale and readiness enough that maybe they can be more easily overrun. You can see the morale is only 11. And we're steadily wearing away at their readiness. Alright, the readiness is down to 39.8. 1 to 3. Alright, we'll reinforce these troops here to full strength. Alright, let's attack here 1 to 3 with our armor. Pull it back here. Move our Marine Division forward here. 0 to 3 on a landing. Do my mechanized get 2 attacks? They should. Oh, just 1, huh? Well, this tank's gonna die next turn then. So much for that. Can't cram more units in there. Should have landed it somewhere else, I guess. Meanwhile, these Marines here got a good look on the Japanese positions here in the Northern Island. They're probably going to close in on the troops at Hecadite. Their supply situation isn't great. What's it going to be tomorrow? Still just 3. We could load these guys back up on transports and send them south. Do we have any enemy troops here at Nagita? They do. And also at Sendai. Yeah, so this is going to be the problem, guys, and you guys have mentioned this multiple times, is this complete inability at this stage in the war for the Allies to successfully advance on the Japanese home islands. And there's not a lot I can do about it. I know some of you have sort of suggested, well, interesting that Seoul is unoccupied. If I had known that before I moved those units. But yeah, I mean, I know the Japanese morale recovers steadily after the initial nuclear strike on them, so that's going to make things more difficult for us, I think, to stick around. The problem is I feel like there's not a lot I can really do, because at the end of the day, I can't choose another city to nuke. At least as far as I can tell, I have no control over where the nukes get dropped. Hiroshima and Nagasaki historically get nuked. I'd taken Nagasaki before the first bombs had dropped. That might have been a mistake. But then the Japanese morale plummets. After that, however, the Japanese morale will steadily recover. So if you look at Japanese national morale, you can see it fell, plummeted down here below 20. It's down to 18, but now it's leveled off. And I believe it starts to recover. I don't think there's any way for me to tell the country to nuke more. There's no options in, like, unit purchases for the U.S. for nuclear weapons. There's no ability to instruct, like, click on a city like Tokyo and say, like, hey, I want to nuke the city. Like, there's no options like that. It's just scripted in terms of who gets nuked. I think sometimes Osaka gets nuked, but I don't think it did this time. So I don't think there's anything I can do about that unless any of you know a secret on how to tell the game to nuke someone who it didn't originally. In any event, that leaves us with purchasing decisions. So the Chinese nationalists have 5 armies or 5 corps, I guess 4 corps in one army located around Umrichi. We should swap these guys. And then they've got 245 points, which is actually enough for a Chinese headquarter. Interestingly enough, there are multiple Chinese headquarters that are better than, well, I mean, Stillwell sucks, but I think it's interesting that there's some actually decent Chinese headquarters here. So I'm going to go ahead and purchase Chinese headquarters Su, which will be 222 MPPs, so that our Chinese forces at Umrichi have a headquarters unit to support them. It'll make them much more effective fighters. Meanwhile, in India, we've kind of already spent our money on our reinforcements. I don't really have more money from newer units, so we'll kind of hold off there. In terms of the United States, we only have 102 points left. France has 307 that we can't use. The British do have 200, which we, in theory, could use. We could raise a new army to replace one of them that we've lost, so we could raise the 10th Army, since that had previously been destroyed, for only 173. I think we'll do that. We haven't bought a British unit in a while. Spending it on R&D might have been a better play, but we haven't really bought new British forces for quite a while. They've got level 5 tanks. They've got level 2 infantry weapons. They're working on level 5 fighters. They're not there yet. They're working on level 2 naval weaponry. They're not there yet. They haven't invested anything really so far or had any success in investing in ASW technology. That's my mistake. Logistics is 3 out of 5. We're already investing 2 there, so no real point to invest more. Spying and intelligence is maxed out at 3 out of 3. Production technology is at 2 out of 5. I really should be investing there, but I didn't do that this turn. Maybe we'll do that next turn. Industrial technology is 4 out of 5. We've already got 1 invested there. Probably not worth investing in others, since you'll lose one of those chits, since the max is 5. Amphibious warfare is 4 out of 5. It's annoying that the British don't have any long-range amphibious technology for whatever reason so far. Naval warfare, aerial warfare, armored warfare, infantry warfare already maxed out at 1 out of 1. Command and control is investing 1 chit of a potential 2. We've got 1 already. So I think we're doing okay in terms of British R&D and what there's left to invest. The Americans are also almost to level 5 fighters, which should be very useful against the German Air Force and France as we start to ramp up American air presence in England. And that's the situation right now. What I perhaps should have done was use my B-24s against the Japanese here, but it looks like we're just going to lose casualties. It doesn't look like there's any damage that'll be done. And if I try and bomb over China, I'm sure we'll get intercepted by Japanese fighters. So for the moment, anyway, we'll hold off doing that. And that's the situation, guys. Not a great situation. Japan looks like it's going to turn into a stalemate, although maybe they'll waste their turn again by reinforcing the 16th Army from 5 back to 10 and buy me some time. I imagine the first anti-tank unit will wipe out this 3rd Marine armor, and these guys will be dead. But they can still only bring 1 unit to bear against us since we've got these naval assets in here and in close to shore. Naval and land units can move on these hexes, so it's a good thing we have the naval units there. I don't think their land units can directly attack us, although I could be wrong. Unlike when you're in port. And I did use the turn to reinforce the 3rd Army, the 1st Marine Special Forces, the 101st Airborne, and the 2nd Rangers, so that maybe we can start to shuffle some of these guys further forward so that we don't have anti-tank guns up against tanks. That would be ideal. Also, maybe we could load some troops back up at Nagasaki and swing them around for a flanking maneuver to try and draw Japanese troops north. Maybe we land more troops near Hecatite, or maybe we land near Sakhalin or something like that to try and draw the Japanese away. I'm not sure. But that'll all be for next time. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and I'm out.